All right. Lieutenant Commander Chamberlain, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and the detailing shop over there, or if you would like me to, whatever you'd like.
No, I appreciate that, ma'am. I'll go through this real quick. So right now in the office, we have Commander Doss, we have Captain Smith, and Commander O'Connell is on the line as well. And then I am the OMO, GMO, GME detailer. One thing, if we can, just as there's some echo on the line, please mute your mics. So that way, hopefully, we can prevent some of the echo from occurring. If at any time you can't hear me, please just raise your hand. It's on the top of the screen. Just raise your hand or put a note in there that says, hey, need you to speak up a little bit. Apologize you're not able to see me. Our cameras are disabled on our computers. So until we can figure that out, it's probably a good thing for y'all anyway. So the plan for today is to go through a quick brief just to kind of give you an overview of what I do as the detailer and what the other detailers do here. We all work together, we cross detail a lot, and we'll go through that process, but it's really just to paint a big picture of what it's like here at PERS and to give you a better understanding of where we sit in this big machine and how we work our processes here. So we'll go over kind of the organizational chart, an overview of what is detailing, the roles, and not just roles of the detailer, but roles of the placement shop. So what does the placement officer do? What's the role of the specialty leaders? And then the officer community manager as well, who is the overseer really of the community as numbers wise as a whole. Rules associated with detailing, how your orders process through the system. I know I've talked to quite a few of you about terms. You'll hear me say prop, and we'll go through what propping orders means. And then the Corps Chief's office is going to go over the roadmap for the Medical Corps, which is it's not a you have to follow this, check all these boxes. It's just a map of sorts to kind of guide you through the career. And we use it as detailers too. We always want to make sure you're moving up and to the right and not moving backwards in your career. So go to the next slide. Man, I just want to confirm y'all are seeing these slides, yes?
Yes, we're seeing the slides.
Thank you. So here's the MPC organizational chart. As you can see, we do not, we have a coordinating line. That dotted line over to BUMED is a coordinating line to BUMED. We work for a line commander. We are the medical 4415 that works as detailers to support through a coordination effort BUMED in ensuring they're getting placement for the billets that they need. So i.e. there's an open billet, we're going to take an individual that we'll say a graduating intern, and we are going to ensure that that billet is filled that BUMED has and is paid for to be able to fit their need. So we have different shops. So in our shop, we have PERS 4415 Echo, Papa, and Romeo. We talked about the Medical Corps detailing team. There is our wonderful staff we have here and the individual areas in which we work. So if you're, say, a family med person and you call me for a detailing billet, anticipate a redirect to Commander O'Connell before I have a discussion. We just want to make sure we are not, we're working in our own silos, and we're cross detailing to a point of efficiency. So our 4415 Echo desk is our placement desk. What the placement desk does, and that's a medical department training. So if you're going into a residency or a fellowship, that is me posting the billet, making the billet available for you to actually enter. So I can't write you orders until that billet is approved to be written into. So that's the first step in the detailing process. 4415 Papa is the assignments desk. That's where, for medical corps training, I am writing your orders out of that desk. So after they are put into the system via Echo, I go into the next desk and write your orders out of Papa. And then 4415 Romeo is really the detailing we do for the majority of our billets from medical corps detailing staff. So that's really the assignments desk for all the specialties outside of training. So the detailer's role, first and foremost, we are the officer's advocate. We have conversations, we get to know you, get to know what your wants and needs are, and we try our very best to not only meet the officer's needs and wants, but we also have the bigger Navy requirements we have to fulfill as well. So it's not that we aren't listening, and it's not that we're not trying to do what's right for you. We are always going to do what's right for you, but we also need to ensure that we are fulfilling the needs of the Navy as well. We negotiate the assignment. You know, you're filling out stuff right now, a wish list of sorts that may say, you know, what coast do you want or what location, east, west, Oconus, and what are you trying to do with your career? You may say, hey, I really want to get an IM residency and I want to be on the East Coast. Well, I might be able to work a job that'll have you somewhat connected to the IM community, if not in a gapped or open IM billet, but it might be on the West Coast and it might be Oconus. So we work, you might get all three, you might get everything you want, but we work to try to get you at least some of the stuff you desire. So the specialty leader recommends to the detailer, but does not detail. And that's very important. You can have conversations with the specialty leader and talk to them about what you, and we want that to happen. We want your specialty leaders to know their people. We want you to know your specialty leader. Specialty leader can recommend that information to me as the detailer, but ultimately the detailer is the individual that details, and we make that decision. The placement officer's role, that's the command's advocate. So the command, if they are desiring a certain capability of a billet, is communicating to the placement officer here. And the placement officer will communicate with the detailer. So we just want to ensure that those lines of communication are not single points of failure coming into the detailer. The officer community manager role, they're the 100,000-foot view of the medical corps. They're looking at the overall health of the community, ensuring that we're recruiting and retaining, we're meeting the percentages that we need to meet in order to ensure longevity for the community. So the detailer duties, again, we're the advocate of the officer in the assignment process. We negotiate and we enter the orders. So entering the orders is me going into that and propping the orders into the system. And we'll get into that further too. We communicate often with the specialty leaders, if not every day. We're communicating with them in regards to things that they may need in their specialty and things that I may need from them to look into further. So that is a open line of communication that is constantly occurring. We talk to constituents before and after board. So if you're going up, you're in zone, take a look at the Lanil list that's out on the Corps Chief's site. And if you're in zone, we should be having a conversation. If you're above zone, we should really be having a conversation. I'm here to help you ensure that your record is the best that it can be as you enter that board. So if you're in that situation right now, please, please, please reach out to me. We process the NSIP's request for resignation and retirements. There's maybe some people on the line right now that are going through that process, and we can assist to a point with that. We can give you kind of some updates. You can look at a lot of this stuff yourself as well. When you go into NSIPs, you can see where it is along the continuum. When it leaves our desk, it goes through a various chop chain, various people through the chop chain that ultimately will result in the approval or denial of that resignation or retirement. We nominate officers for board member duties. So not really, as an intern, you're probably not going to be nominated for many boards, but later in your career, if you would like to sit a board, and I highly recommend you throw your name in the hat to give you knowledge of how this process works. You would submit that through your detailer, and we would nominate individuals. Command site visits, COVID is kind of affected it as of late, but we are really taking a hard look and going to put that on the front burner to make sure we get out to commands and start to work with our constituents face to face. I owe that to you, so we will make that happen. Detailing rules. So we fill billets by priority. The priority billets are GSA, which is the Global War on Terrorism Support Assignment. Operational billets, OK. So from a priority perspective, those 4 deployed billets, those billets that could be deployed, those billets OCONUS, they're a little bit more difficult to get out to and get settled. And then we work back to shore. We must have a funded billet. Yeah, some of you have heard me, we've talked, and there may be somebody in a billet that you said, hey, I'd really like that billet, but that billet went unfunded. And so we aren't able to write you into it. I can't make a billet up. So in order to fill that billet, it has to be funded. OCONUS DoD tour links, they vary by location and duty type. So make sure we're understanding that, yeah, you're taking that shore duty, it's going to be 36 months or 36-month orders. You're going to take that FMF duty OCONUS, that's going to be 24 months. So really understand by what tour you're taking, it's going to dictate the tour length associated with it. CONUS prescribed tour lengths, again, going back to that same comment. EFMP in our system, if you have an EFMP in your family, we will see that and we will discuss locations that we are able to get you to. And that's routed through PERS, and that's another shop that helps us with that process to ensure that we are putting you in the right location to ensure that your family is getting what they need. Co-location requirements, you've seen that. We've pushed that out. If you are a colo, we need to be talking right now. So that way we can work keeping your family together. One thing I do want to know with that is we will try to ensure that we can PCS you all together. However, we do have some wiggle room in there. If we can't move one of you, we have some time, I believe it's 12 months, to ensure that co-location is fulfilled. So it may not happen right away. More times than not, it does. But if we can't do it right away, we do have some time to make that happen. Legal hold limitations. If you're in a legal hold, I can't move you. Limb due limitations, same thing. So if you're in that situation, you're going to be stuck in that billet until those issues are resolved. This brings us to the OMO detailing process and how this is a new process. We're rolling it out. We're feeling our way through this right now. But here's our plan. So we have started early to detail second, third, and fourth tour GMOs, not OMOs, GMOs. So we still have GMOs coming through the system. Everybody is not a OMO yet. All these billets have not converted. So we're detailing those individuals into their next tours, and ensuring that we get them and hopefully in staying in line with the medical corps roadmap to give them the best chance possible to advance their career in the Navy. Next, we had the process of applying and screening through specialty leaders, the FMF and surface communities. At that time, the specialty leaders scored these individuals and they determined who they would like to bring into that community based off of that scoring. You have the opportunity to accept or decline. And if you accepted, we work to detail you. So you would receive an email from the specialty leader saying, hey, that's awesome. We're thrilled you accepted into this community. Please contact the detailer. So once I am contacted, we will try to fit you into one of those billets. We'll work with you. We'll have conversations. I've talked to many of you for upwards of an hour to try to make something work. Understand, if selected and accepted into the community, if you accepted into the community, but you were not slated, and what slated means is you received a billet. If you did not receive a billet, I'm still going to work to detail you. I'm going to get you into something that might be a support mechanism of that capability, i.e. a CB billet, or if we have open flight school seats or AME seats that we could possibly get you into. We're also looking at gapped specialty billets that are willing to take an OMO or a GMO. So if I have an FM billet in Groton, Connecticut that's saying, hey, I would really like to take, Vice being gapped, I would be willing to take a GMO. That is an opportunity that we could get an individual into. I use the analogy we'd like to paint the whole house before we put a second coat on it, and that's really what we need to get back to. Vice double stuffing and triple stuffing billets. We need to ensure that we're filling all the holes before we even consider doing that first, and that is a big change from previous years. Next, we go to graduating interns. So these are the non-FMF surface, didn't get into a residency. These are those folks. A wish list was sent out and was asked to be returned to Commander Treadwell. So I hope you're filling those out and getting that information back to her so she can provide me with that information. At that time, the goal, what we're going to do, Vice taking individual phone calls or just saying ready, set, go, call the detailer, we are going to take a list of all those people. We're going to put it into Excel, and we're going to sort, and we're going to randomize that list. And so it's not based by location. It's not alphabetically. It is a lottery. And we are going to start at the top of that list. I'll have your wish list, and I will call you, and we will discuss your wish list and hopefully detail you. And we will just continue to work down that list until we are through everybody. Okay. So we talked about screening and slating, and I just kind of want to go over this real quick so you understand. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you want people to raise their hands during your talk to ask questions, or did you want them to hold till the end?
Let's hold questions. I can't see if they're raising their hands. All I see in front of me is my slides. So
good. There's a few questions in the chat, but we'll hold them till the end.
Okay, very good. So screening versus slating. So screening, when a service member has been successfully accepted into a community. So you've been screened and accepted into that community, FMF, surface flight, UMO, the list goes on. Slating is when a service member has been selected to a position within that accepted community. So if you were screened for FMF and we slated you into an FMF billet. Now, if you were screened for FMF and I don't have any more FMF billets, you were not slated, and we will work to get you another billet. So I just want to ensure that everybody is understanding that just because you were screened and accepted doesn't mean that you will be automatically slated into one of those billets within that community. So your orders, we've talked about how I propose or prop your orders into the system. That's meaning we put your information in, we click the go button, and it starts to make its way through the process here at PERS. So just to kind of paint a picture of how this goes, we have losing placement. Okay, do we have a backfill associated? All these questions are going to go through this process. Gaining placement, does the individual meet the requirement? Waivers, are there any waivers we need to submit in order to make these orders happen? The order writers, it goes after all that's done, it goes to the order writers and they start to write your orders. After the order writers submit it, it goes to costing. Is there money in that code those 4415 Echo, Papa, and Romeo, is there money to cover? Then it goes to overseas screening, EFMP check, if those are a requirement, if they're needed for that billet. And then it goes to PERS 451 for the final cost review. Is there money in the PERS account? And right now we're cutting orders through June. So if there's money in the account, your orders will get released. So it has to go through a pretty lengthy chop chain. That's why you'll see in my emails, hey, I've proposed your orders. Please put in your phone at this time 8 weeks from now. If you haven't seen your orders in NSIPs by that phone reminder that you get in 8 weeks, please call me and we will start to look into where your orders are currently at. So orders are usually released 6 months prior to detachment. It's a little bit different with how we do interns because we have to wait for the GME results to be released. So the official GME list has not come out yet. So we haven't started to write the GME residency and fellowship positions yet because not all the seats have been accepted. So once we get that list, we'll start to do that. So it's kind of a game we have to play. That list is really the center of gravity in this process. It's our go button, or at least my go button. Orders can be modified or canceled at any time prior to execution. I tell the story a lot that I had orders modified and changed to a different unit when I was flying to Hawaii. So it can happen that far out. Now, does that happen all the time? No, I was just the weird one. I showed up thinking I was going to one command and I was redirected at the airport when that I had new orders. So not that happens all the time, but just know that is a possibility that they can be modified or canceled at any time. Don't buy a house. That's probably the best way to put that next bullet. Just because you received orders, don't go and financially obligate yourself to something that the Navy could pull out from under you very quickly. Hey, we need you to go here now. Well, I just bought a house. I apologize about the house. You're going to go here. So don't make any of those rash decisions until you are absolutely positive. LOIs are case-by-case basis. We've had some requests. Right now, we are not releasing LOIs. That can change, but as of this time, we are not. I see a lot of extensions. Folks like where they're at, or they like their job and they want to stay, or they're going to reapply to residency and they feel that that is the best spot for them to do it at. It is not a guarantee. I'm not going to go through all the pros and cons of this, but just know that as the detailer, I still have to work these billets, ensuring that we are getting people the experience they need. I can't have you just sit in a billet for 4 years so you meet your OSD and you move on, which would be great. Don't get me wrong. It would be wonderful for you and your family, but I have to provide opportunity for others to advance as well. So we go through and look at all those items when an extension comes in, and we will make a decision based off of the community from there. Ma'am, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Sounds good. Thank you. So this is the Medical Corps career pathway. I'm not sure if anyone has seen this, or I'm sure at least some of you on the line have seen this. This was created, I think, a year and a half ago about now, and this is kind of the general picture for the Medical Corps and the career path that you want to take. So if you look here, most of you are in that junior OMO tour, or you get selected for residency. And the idea here is if you see the blue boxes under example assignments, you can kind of see those are what would be fleet or operational assignments that you could have within each rank. And then the gray ones are really what the positions that you could have at an NMRTC or NMRTU, and the types of leadership positions that you would want to have as you progress along your career. At the top, you can see the recommended kind of medical professional achievements that you kind of want. You want to get board certification by the time you're in 04. Now, obviously, it depends on your specialty, how quickly you can get board certification. I know for surgical specialties, you need to have a certain number of caseloads. You need to be able to schedule your oral boards versus written boards. Obviously, that depends, and so you're not going to get it necessarily directly out of residency. So it could take you a little bit of time. And as you see here, as you go up, you also want to potentially do, a senior OMO tour, an executive OMO tour. You want to work on JPME, those kinds of things. There's also a level of HRO or kind of the culture of safety development training opportunities that you can have. You can see on there at the very beginning, before you actually come in, all of you have done ODS or Officer Development School. You need to do any sort of operational schoolhouse training, or if you're in residency, do that as well. You want to work on BROC or Basic Readiness Officer course, AROC, and then eventually do your QSLA training in the future. So these are all things that you can do. This kind of roadmap is not meant to be something that you have to do everything. This is not possible for everyone to do everything, especially these different assignments. It's meant as an example of what you could do. And the idea of it is that you have your medical specialty, which is what you're going to be doing when you're at an NMRTC, NMRTU, versus your operational specialty, which is what you're going to be doing when you're doing your OMO tours. And you're going to bounce back and forth between the two. And hopefully, while you're in each rank, with the 03, kind of depends how long your residency is, you're not necessarily going to be able to do a fleet tour if you go straight through and you're doing a longer residency program. But then you just start off as an 04 or very junior 04 or very senior 03 doing that fleet job or that operational tour. And the idea is that you get experience in both realms, that you maintain your operational specialty and your medical specialty, at least one tour per rank. And that can kind of show how you are maintaining both of your qualifications. And so that's the idea of this career path. There are also specialty-specific career paths, and each specialty leader had the opportunity to create a specialty-specific career path. All of this can be found on the Medical Corps Chief's SharePoint page, and so all of that information is there as well. All right. I believe that was the last slide. Is that correct, Lieutenant Commander Chamberlain?
Say that again, ma'am. I apologize.
Oh, this is the last slide of your presentation. Is that correct, or do you have one more?
No, that's it, ma'am. So we have the contact slide, and now we'll kind of go to the. Most of you have our contact information. We just put it up on here, so that way, once this brief is posted, if for some reason you can't find it or you want to save the brief, you'll have access to our information.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. So I do want to go through some of the questions that I see in the chat, and then we can kind of open it up for Q&A. I do have questions that were sent in earlier. I do want to preface this that there were some questions that were sent regarding what to do for an overseas PCS, OCONUS PCS. This is not necessarily the forum for those types of questions, those kinds of individual questions. Those kinds of things, please feel free to ask us one-on-one. But anyone that's concerned about going overseas, you'll all have a sponsor and they will answer all of those questions for you as well. So some of the questions that were in the chat are, I'll start at the beginning. How were those selected for OMO position prioritized for detailing? Was it first come, first serve, or was there a specific method that was done?
Yes, so that's a great question. So specialty leaders were the individuals who screened these individuals and scored them appropriately. So Very similar to the GME process. When you apply through mods, you get scored by the specialty. It was no different on our end. There was a scoring mechanism that was built, and then individuals were given a point total, and we worked from the top down in detailing those individuals. Pretty straightforward process. I know we received a lot of phone calls after individuals were detailed that they felt they were missing the boat, and it was a very simple conversation of, did you apply to FMF or surface? And if the answer was no, it was, please fill out the wish list and I'll be reaching back to you. We also, at times, if I had the availability at the time, I'd try to get to know the individual as well. So I never want you to feel like you can't call me and we can talk. I'll create a note in the system, and then that way when we do talk again, I have our previous notes in there as well. But from the OMO standpoint, there's scoring mechanisms built, and then we work down that list to try to meet that individual's wants in regards to what type of billet they wanted to go to or what unit they wanted to go to, and location. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. I also wanted to put it out there that our operational specialty leaders are also on the line. So please feel free to jump in and answer any questions if you want to contribute any information. All right. So another question that was brought up is, are the CBs considered an OMO billet with this new definition? You mentioned CB billets before.
Yeah, it's a great, it's actually one of the first questions I asked when I got here and started to look at the, how these billets were broken out. And so I think that's something we're going to talk about next year is bringing in the CBs into that surface community for slating. Right now they are not. But if I can't get you into one of those surface billets, it is one of the billets. We don't have a ton of them, but it is one of the billets that we will discuss as a potential option to still be blue side per se, but in an operational unit.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question that was asked was, and this might not just be for you, Lieutenant Commander Chamberlain, but also for the operational specialty leaders, is if people are going to get screened for a community, but they're not guaranteed to be slated, how are we going to communicate that to the community in order to prevent in the future people feeling like it's not worth even being screened and not even applying?
Oh, great question. And this one's on me. This is for me to provide those operational specialty leaders the information of what we know to be true at the time for future quotas. So as we progress through this process, it's really on the detailer to provide you with, hey, this is likely the number we're to see for fill in the surface community or for fill in the FMF community. That way you have some left and right lateral limits as the operational specialty leader to determine how many people you select into the community. That's really the best way we think we can do it. It's, it's as we're going through this process and determining what right looks like, this is one of the major things that we feel we owe back to those specialty leaders to make a good informed decision. Over.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question that we had is for O4s or for more senior residents that are going to be going into an OMO billet. How can they navigate making sure that they choose a billet that helps them with career advancement versus taking a billet that might be more detrimental to their career progression?
That is something that we are going to rely on. Those, are we referring to these O4s being current GMOs, or are we referring to these O4s being board certified OMOs?
Let's say board board certified going out for OMOs.
Okay, so
Like, let's say
that's
they had a long residency and they're like a junior 04 going out.
right. So that is a not only across detailing, but cross specialty leaders as well, to ensure that we are finding the right billet for that individual. Now, say the individual, I'll use this scenario. The individual was a GMO. They were at a battalion. They were a battalion surgeon, and they want to come back to the FMF after they went out and did a residency. And all we have on the slate are battalion surgeon jobs. My recommendation to that individual would to be not to take that job. You've already done that job. It is not going to be career enhancing. We would probably try to push that individual to the NSS slate and see if they could potentially get a regimental job or even at the brigade level. Over.
Wonderful. And please, the group, if you feel like your question wasn't fully answered, please feel free to raise your hand. You can also ask these questions too. I'm just reading the ones that are in the chat. Once I'm done reading the ones in the chat, we can of course open it up to the group for anyone that wants to ask their questions. And if no one speaks up, I'm happy to start reading questions off of the ones that were sent in earlier. Another question was, when you're talking OMO, are you including flight surgery and UMO as well, or are you just talking specifically about FMF and surface?
No, they're included as well. The reason there's so much focus on the FMF and surface, and this is not to say there isn't focus on the other communities as well, but the other communities are a little bit more mature in their processes. We've been doing it for a long time. We know what we're doing. We know how that process works. It's fluid. These other processes we're developing as we go, how that's working. So I'm not taking away from the flight surgery and the UMO community at all, and I apologize if I came across that way, sir. But they are definitely included. Over.
Captain Musharoni, did you want to add something? I thought I saw your hand raised.
I'm concerned. I don't mean to jump in. My understanding of the flight surgery and the UMO process is slightly different than what Commander Chamberlain described. So I know Commander O'Connell's on the line. She may want to comment on that. And I don't know exactly everyone in the audience today. So if you have questions about UMO, I'd encourage you to talk to Commander O'Connell or myself. Over.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. Feel free to reach out to any of the special leaders, the operational special leaders, the other detailers as well, if you do have any questions. Or any specific questions regarding a specific specialty, operational specialty. Let's see, another question that was from the group is, will this application process change the medical screening for OMO billets? Meaning, will there be a stricter standards for flight surgery, UMO versus operational duty? I'm not sure I 100% understand the question.
I'll try to answer, I think, what's being asked. So with any billet, there's screening requirements to enter. If you're going to go overseas, you're going to have to do an overseas screening. If you're going into, let's say you're headed out to Bahrain, you're going to have to do a CENTCOM screening, because that's specific to that area. So just like flight, you got to do a flight physical to be even able to enter the community. So it's really specific to the job. I wouldn't say the application process changes. If you want to apply for the FMF, you apply to the FMF. Now, if you know that there is no way in hell you are going to be able to pass an overseas screening, but you really want to go to Okinawa, I mean, we should probably have a conversation about that before we get through that entire process with a very good probability you're not going to be able to pass that. So not that there's any difference. It's still the same process. But we should, if there's concerns, we should talk about it. Over.
Captain Leonard, I think I saw your hand raised. Did you want to add something, sir?
Hey, thank you. Yes, hi, this is Captain Leonard from Surface. A couple points, and I really appreciate Lieutenant Commander Chamberlain's presentation, and I've been working with him very closely for many months now, and applaud his work on behalf of the interns. So the first one I would offer is with regard to the medical standards, maybe working backwards. The physical standards for surface are about as basic as they come in the Navy, basically that you're healthy enough to be assigned, whereas, for example, UMO has a physical screening process that is going to require some bar to pass, a chin-up bar in particular. So those, I think the OMO billets, as has been described, is sort of a broad umbrella that includes all four of the warfare areas. Whereas, so comparing OMO billets to like flight surgery UMO, I think, as I've understood, Commander Chamberlain, is a little bit of a false paradigm, as it has an overall umbrella. So, but there are things that are specific for UMO and flight surgery that don't have application, for example, to surface and perhaps even FMF. And so I would offer that as a point for clarification. One of the other questions in the chat had to do with selection versus slating, and I think that term is really important to distinguish. And so just for information of those on the call, I had 116 applicants, quote unquote, for surface force billets, and of course we don't have anywhere near that number of billets to assign. And so I think part of the frustration by many perhaps is an inherent consequence of the privilege that interns have to apply to multiple specialties. For example, if we only accepted 16, I'll just pick a number, 16 surface applicants, a fair number of those have applied to other specialties, and we would then be shorting ourselves kind of necessity. So I know that's an unfortunate misunderstanding, but I think going with the term slating is helpful in understanding the process for selection. And then the final point I would offer has to do with this new process, as has already been mentioned, that really has as the end game the idea that in the future state, most, if not all, interns will go straight through to residency training. And so the concept or the process for these operational specialties ultimately is going to have to be flexible enough to adapt to board certified physicians applying. And so some of the aspects of the process don't exactly apply for interns per se, and particularly with on the surface side, at least the scoring aspect, because it's done so early. We don't really have a real practical way to identify one applicant as better or worse than another per se. So just some brief comments. I'll stay on the call if there's follow-up questions. So thanks for that.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you you letting us know that. And I think I want to second what you said, that this is still a transitional process right now. And the end game is that most people will probably go through residency, and this is after the transition. The idea is that most people will go through residency and you'll be applying for these after residency. Commander Buckling-Coffey, would you like to add something?
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify on the screening versus slating. So we did this a little differently on the FMF side, and this is probably because we had a higher number of billets. So we knew going in that we were going to have, between 40 and 60 billets available overall. So we did select only those who were going to be given billets. So that was a little difference in FMF and surface for this year. And I do plan to continue that over the following years, just because we do have a larger number of available spots. So I just wanted to make that minor point of clarification, and that is why on the FMF side, we had a really large number of alternates. We did make it pretty deep into our alternate list once everything had kind of settled down, but on FMF, if you select, there is a position for you. There is no separate screening process. At least that is the plan that I have going forward, and that is what we were able to do this year. Over.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, ma'am, that goes back to the what I owe you, what I owe you and what I owe Captain Leonard, of what the quotas are going to look like through attrition, through individuals selected to go to residency. Some of that information that I am privy to, we can kind of release without release. I can release you a number without defining the BSC, so you don't know the individual. I can just say you're going to have X amount of billets to fill. And that will help us align the number of actually selecting people to billet availability. Over.
Wonderful. So that's all the questions that I see in the chat. I want to open it up to the group. If you are on Teams and you can raise your hand, please feel free to raise your hand and I can call on you. Otherwise, if you hear silence and you're on the phone, you want to ask a question, please jump in. If I don't hear anything within a minute or so, I will start asking the questions that were sent in earlier. All right, I'm not hearing anything from the group. All right, so there is one question, and this might be for the operational specialty leaders as well. Will there be billet specific training or for the OMOs depending on your position, or will there be operational specific training that you'll go into prior to reporting? Over.
I can take that. The goal is yes, is the easiest way to put it. We want to work individuals into programs like on the surface side, ensuring they're getting, I believe it's called Swim Doic. Sorry, I'm an FMF guy. And then FMSO for officers going into the FMF community. We'll work to align that. I in a perfect world, what we're able to coordinate with through TCOM and the FMTVs to align an I-stop, meaning before you even report to the command, you're able to go through that program. That's really our goal as an end state. We're not sure we're there yet. We're going to work through that process. But yes, you will receive training prior to entering those fields. Over.
Another thing is that some of this training is still in the works. So if it's something that's going on that you're PCSing or you're going to be taking an OMO billet or GMO billet this summer, just be aware that you might not get that training prior to reporting. Because some things I know the Marine Corps training is not necessarily I think ready to go just yet, but I know it is in the works. Captain Leonard, did you want to add something? Sorry.
I just echo the same thing for surface force medicine. We're meeting at the end of this month with the NMETC folks to do the job duty task analysis for that course. But the bottom line, looking at warts and all, that course does not have funding attached to it, and there's not a resource sponsor. So we try and make it happen, take it out of hide, so to speak, which for this audience really means that it's important that you get in touch with Lieutenant Commander Chamberlain, and we figure out where your assignment will be. Some of the challenges have to do with getting assigned to ships that may not be in their home port, and a delay in reporting to go to that course, is going to have follow-on impact for folks coming back to residency, et cetera, et cetera. So figuring out with the command that you're going to, when that course can be done, requires an extra level of communication, which I would say is vital, at least on the surface force side, for getting that education. Over.
Excellent, sir. Thank you so much for putting that in. Another question that was proposed, has the operational side of the house seen DHA's new training requirements for the emergency war surgery course completion due at the completion of residency or within the first 12 months of reporting to an operational billet?
Hey, sir, this is Lieutenant Commander Chamberlain. I did see your email yesterday, and I appreciate the light reading. So to answer your question, yes, we have seen it. I'll defer to the operational specialty leaders with their thoughts on this. From the PERS side of the house, if it is a requirement and it's a defined requirement within a billet, then we will work to get that fulfilled. But I will leave it up to the surface community to, or not surface, the operational communities to chime in on this. Over.
Any operational
From the
specialty?
surface side, Captain Leonard again. I did see the requirement. That's being investigated because, of course, any requirement needs to have funding associated with it. And I just sort of finished talking about the challenges that we're facing. So, over.
Thank you, sir. And I just read that instruction this morning. So I know that it was recently signed, I believe. I think it was just signed last month. So just so everyone knows, it does take time once there's a requirement in place that everything kind of works out to try to figure out who is going to pay for everything. So more information on that course to come. Another question that was asked was, when will a list be finalized of what billets are available and which ones are funded? I guess that's the question of, is that something that is kind of given out to the group when someone's making a wish list, that they actually know which billets are funded, or is that something that you don't determine until later?
Yeah, so I can absolutely answer that. So the bluff on it is we're not going to release a slate. You're not going to see what billets are available. And the main purpose of that is that every day I have new billets entering and new billets leaving, whether they're becoming unfunded or whether I'm trying to fill them through another community. In the past, we just double stuffed billets. And so we put people into billets, and that's kind of, you saw the billet, and even if that billet was taken, it was okay because we would just put you into it. We are absolutely getting away from that. And what will be happening as communities are not able to fill billets, and those specialty leaders have confirmed that with the detailer, I have a separate slate that are pushed over to me, and we will fill individuals into those billets. So we fill all the gaps and seams. So if you're paying for a billet as an organization, you're getting that billet vice 8 people being in one billet and your billet still going gapped. So to send out a slate, as soon as I send it out, I would receive, a ton of phone calls based off of, I want this billet, and that billet is going to be gone immediately. So it's a whole lot easier just to define what you're looking for and let me look through the slate and determine what I think you're looking for, and then we have a conversation. I could be way off. I'm just a knuckle dragging med planner, but I will try to meet your needs, and we can have a discussion about, if I'm off, where to get you to what you want to do. Over.
Thank you. Commander Miller did just put in a request in the comment section. I'm just going to read it really quickly, to please utilize your command intern coordinators at the MTS, as well as the various specialty leaders, Commander Treadwell as well, just to make sure to spread the word to the interns about all of this information, and make sure that you can kind of mitigate all the expectations, because I feel that during this transition, there's a lot of information that they're receiving from those who have gone through it in the past, but it's not the same as it was in the past. And I think that's really important to inform them that this is a new process, and that they shouldn't necessarily assume that the information they're getting from their colleagues is as correct as what they can get from Commander Treadwell, their specialty leaders, Commander Chamberlain, all of you. So I think it is very important to speak with them.
Lima Charlie on that, sir. Totally see what you're saying. Hard to control the scuttlebutt. So we know that happens. Individuals go back and tell all their other interns that they're working with and in their specialty what's going on for them, and it may not be the same situation. Happens a lot with colos. Hey, I got my orders, but they don't understand the whole scenario. So totally understand that. We are pushing everything through Commander Treadwell, and Commander Treadwell has disseminated those wish lists, and she is doing yeoman's work, collecting all those wish lists on behalf of all the interns to provide to me to help detail these individuals into the right positions. So again, Lima Charlie, sir, tracking, and we'll continue to communicate through Commander Treadwell.
I think we have time for perhaps one more question before we end at 1300 Eastern time. One that was on the list that was sent previously was, will there be requirements for certain levels of clinical competence or experience at certain operational billets? For example, there's an advantage to having like a primary care personnel at in the majority or in a number of OMOs. And could that limit opportunities for non-primary care based specialties, such as like ophthalmologists or general surgeons or those kinds of specialties? Commander Buckingham Coffey, do you want to answer?
Yeah, so I can speak for the FMF specifically, and I'll have to leave this open for my fellow OMO specialty leaders to speak for their own communities. Within the FMF, we've gone through the entire billet files, and we have tried to make sure that we are matching the approximate makeup of the medical corps in our percentages that we are providing with each specialty. So for example, for non-surgical specialties, because surgical specialties within the Marine Corps have multiple billets within medical battalions, we're looking at about 40% IM, 40% family medicine, 10% peds, and then 2 to 3% of each additional specialty. We've done our best to try to spread load that to the point that we're not going to have an ophthalmologist, a dermatologist, and an ENT all in one location without a family medicine or an internal medicine physician. So we've tried to spread it out in such a way that for 5 years from now, when we are all board certified OMOs, we'll have a good mix of providers that can augment each other's skill sets at each location. Also, we're trying to set up a pathway to maintain some flexibility, because we recognize that in communities with only maybe 10 personnel, there's not necessarily going to be 2 or 3 people from that community who are going to be desiring or needing for their career progression any type of an OMO type billet. So this has been in concert with the specialty leaders, the MEF surgeons, the MAR4 surgeons, PERS, and BUMED, that we're looking at this layout as far as what it will be over the next several years. And as much as possible, we are trying to make sure that we are equitably maintaining these opportunities for all specialties without creating one specialty that's going to get stuck with all the crappy billets. Over.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that explains a lot. We only have about a minute or so, but I wanted to let any of the other operational specialty leaders comment if they wanted to on their specialties. No? All right, that's fine. I think all the specialties are doing a similar idea of a variety of different medical specialties within their billets. Commander Chamberlain, if you wanted to make some last minute comments, I want to try to get everyone out on time, but if you want to say anything.
Yes, ma'am, I appreciate that. So I think I appreciate everybody coming out and dialing in for this. And the second thing is I want you to know that you always have access to me. You can call me about anything. You can call me and tell me about how your dog is sick. I will listen. I don't want you to look at the detailer as an individual that's, you're not supposed to reach out to, and you're not supposed to, you'll only communicate with them when it's just time for orders. Keep me up with what's going on. If you have life changes that you have or you're going through that could potentially guide our detailing process in a different direction, keep me informed. It's important that I know those things so I can help you. Because again, my priority is you. I work for you. So please feel free to reach out to me. I will gladly have a discussion with you. But again, I appreciate the time, and that's all I have, ma'am. Thank you. One quick thing, if I may, though, ma'am, I'd like to just make sure Captain Smith, as the head for the medical corps detailing, doesn't have anything to pass.
Hey, good morning. No, great brief, Derek. Thank you. I appreciate everyone tuning in. This is, I think I've heard it a few times, this is a transformational process. This is the first year we've implemented it. We've learned a lot. And again, the end state is to get our operational, specifically our surface and FMF, because they are functionally, as Derek mentioned, they're a little bit behind where the flight surgeons and UMO have been for years in regards to a structured process by which we screen and then we train and then we detail. So this is good. Now it hasn't come without some bumps, but the coordination, the communication, and the questions are all good to make us better for next year. So just remember what the end state is. We want in this case, all of our operational units to be supported by ready, trained medical corps officers. So that's where the end state is, and I can see that we're getting there. So Derek, great job, and thanks for the great questions. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us today. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to my office, to the detailing office, Commander Treadwell, anyone, or any of the operational specialty leaders. Thank you so much, and I will end the session.